PT all around the country now with the troops, and it's turned into smoke the secretary. It's clear to me why President Trump says all the time we're the strongest, most powerful, most lethal, and most prepared military on the planet. Because you are that strength. You are that power. You are that lethality. And you are prepared. And President Trump's going to make sure it stays that way. Being here with you is the perfect way to mark 250 years of the beautiful and beloved United States Marine Corps. President Trump has made our mission clear. We needed clarity, and he provided it. America first, peace through strength, and common sense at every turn. We are the War Department, and you are warriors. The Marine Corps embodies the warrior ethos. You see, when other parts of the department wavered in years past, not anymore, in years past, the Marine Corps stood strong. When other parts of the department wanted to go woke, the Marine Corps stood strong. When other parts of the department wanted to lower standards, the Marine Corps stood strong. You, ladies and gentlemen, are the backbone of the United States military. You always have been, and that's why we're proud to honor you today. 250 years ago, Major Samuel Nichols formed the Continental Marines. The next year, the Marines won the Battle of Nassau, capturing 2 forts from the Brits. Since that day, the very mention of the Marine Corps stirred panic in the hearts of our enemies. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, Marines have been the tip of the spear of our armed forces and the vanguard of the fight for freedom, just as they are right now in the Caribbean. Let's hope the wrong people don't FAFO around there. In the most critical battles our nation has ever faced, it is often Marines, forged by unique traditions and tough-as-nails training, who land first. And they volunteer to put themselves in harm's way. Thanks to the blood and sweat of men who came before you, every American knows the truth of the phrase. It's not just a phrase, it's a way of life for all of you. Semper Fidelis, always faithful. You see, because I look out at this crowd, I see a lot of different types of faces. The truth is, your diversity is not your strength. It never has been. Your strength is in your unity of purpose. It's in your shared mission. It's in your oath to the Constitution. It's the bond that turns individuals into single-minded fighting units. You see, you are set apart. You're not civilians. You're devil dogs, leathernecks, United States Marines. Hoorah! You are set apart for a distinct purpose. You kill bad guys and break things for a living. You close with and destroy the enemy for a living. And as we mark the 250th birthday of the Marine Corps, take a moment and remember where you are in the great American story. Everybody likes to talk about 1776, and that was a pretty important date. But we're not here without 1775. When Americans were willing to stand up and pick up a rifle and say, "We will live free." That spirit lives in all of you. That story includes heroes like Chesty Puller, Daniel Daly, and our own great Vice President and Marine JD Vance. Take pride in that story and continue making yourselves worthy of that legacy. As the Commandant said so beautifully, standards, discipline, accountability, warfighting, lethality, they live in the Marine Corps. We get a chance to see our Commander-in-Chief fight for all of you every single day. I know because I see it. President Trump appreciates your dedication, your valor, your tenacity, the sacrifices you make and the sacrifices that all of your families make. We know no Marine serves alone. They serve alongside a family. Someone else who understands that is Vice President Vance, who is right there alongside President Trump, who he himself has made the same types of sacrifices that you have. Your vice president enlisted after high school in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. Your vice president knows and shares the dedication of this force, and he represents you always in Washington. I have the honor of getting a chance to watch Vice President Vance day in and day out live the values of the Marine Corps, speak up and tell the truth, have courage, stand alongside President Trump. It's an incredible thing to watch. And as I tell every warrior I meet, our president and vice president, they have your back. And I promise you, so do I. Support from the top is all I ever wanted when I was a young infantry lieutenant in Iraq, or in Afghanistan, where my boss actually happened to be a Marine. He was tough, he was brave, and a little bit crazy. But I loved him for it. And I knew he would do anything for me. So on behalf of the Department of War, thank you. Congratulations on 250 years of success. And here's to 250 more. I can say to you, we've got 7 little kids in our stead. Not so little anymore, a couple teenagers. Man, I would be proud as a dad if I ever saw one of them put on the uniform of a United States Marine. You serve your country. You make us proud. We have your back. God bless you. God bless our Marines, and may God bless our great republic. Godspeed. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Vice President of the United States of America, JD Vance.
Hoorah, Marines! I didn't hear you. Hoorah, Marines! God bless you, Marines. God bless you, Camp Pendleton. It is so much fun and such an honor to be out here to celebrate 250 years of United States Marines. Now, I gotta say, first of all, thank you to so many of the fine people who are here today who make this incredible event happen and who every day make our military the finest fighting force anywhere in the world. First of all, our great Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who gave a hell of a speech, if I might say so. Pete, where are you at? Now, he is a soldier, but are we proud of our Secretary of War, Marine Corps? Now, I will say, I was talking to Pete about this speech and thinking about what I said, and I realized that over my 4 years in the United States Marine Corps, I probably learned about 100 jokes about United States Marines. And every single one of them, Marines, would mean the end of my political career if I told it up here today. I sent a few of them last night to my communication staff, and I said, can I tell this one? And they said, please no, sir. Please, please do not tell that one. We're also happy to be joined by our great Secretary of the Navy, John Phelan. John, thank you so much for your leadership and service. I got to give a shout out to my beautiful wife, our great Second Lady, Usha Vance, with the Marine Corps hat. You know, I've been asked many times, why did I want to run for and become Vice President of the United States? And there's a lot of answers, of course, to that question. I wanted to serve our wonderful Commander-in-Chief, President Donald J. Trump, and I know we're proud of him. And of course, I wanted to serve the American people and make their lives better, but really, deep down, I wanted the Commandant of the Marine Corps to have to salute a member of the E4 Mafia, and now he has to. And Marines, we have a great Marine Corps Commandant in General Eric Smith. General, thank you so much for everything you do. We got General Daniel Taylor. Where is General Daniel Taylor? Apparently he was sick today. We have got Admiral Gavin Duff here. Admiral, thank you for your service, sir. We have got Colonel John Caldwell and General Michael Nakanizi. Did I pronounce that right, General? There we go. I did okay. I'm the Vice President, so you can't tell me I'm wrong. And of course, Marines, I bring greetings today from our Commander-in-Chief, Donald J. Trump, and he wanted me to tell each and every single one of you that he's proud of you, that he loves you, and that despite the Schumer shutdown, he is going to do everything he can to make sure you get paid exactly as you deserve. Now, I know we're here to talk about the Marine Corps, but I got to get just a little political because congressional Democrats seem to want to keep the government shut down, even though it would mean that a lot of you would not get your paycheck. But as I told the president just a couple of days ago, I said, sir, we have got to figure out how to pay these Marines, both for their sake, but also, of course, because if we don't pay our enlisted Marines, every bar in Southern California is going to go out of business, and we don't want that. Now, I've also got to give a special shout out to the incredible display that we saw earlier today. It made my heart sing as your Vice President, and it was a testament to the Corps' strength and unbeatable power. It reminded me why I am so proud to have worn the uniform, to be one among your ranks, and to be the very first Vice President to have been a United States Marine. Now, for us East Coast Marines, Camp Pendleton has always had a special place in our imagination. We heard the stories of the back-breaking hikes you all had to do, the West Coast Marines had to do in Camp Pendleton. You know it? Us East Coast Marines, we had the sand fleas and you all had the hills. I don't know which was worse. These guys behind me have opinions. So let's give some credit to the amazing Marine units who pulled this off. First of all, to the incredible Marines of this base and the Marine Corps Forces West who put on this display. Let's give a round of applause to the incredible job they did. And I want to talk about some of those units because you all made me so proud. I know we must have some Marines from the 1st Marine Division. Where are you? You all did a hell of a job. How about the Marines from the 3rd Marine Air Wing? I know we have some Marines from the 1st Marine Logistics Group, the lifeblood of the fight. Where are you all at? We've also got Marines from the 1st MEF Information Group, the brain of the fight. Where are you all at? And we've also got, of course, men and women from Marine Corps Installations West, the folks who keep the home front. Where are you, Marine Corps Installations West? There we go. Now, I know you all know we cannot leave out our brothers and sisters of the seas, so we're proud to have all the sailors of the Navy's 3rd Fleet here to celebrate 250 years of Marines. Thank you. These sailors who go to war with us, they fight over the horizon. They stand shoulder to shoulder with Marines wherever the fight takes us. And if any group shares in the glory of the Marines' 250th birthday, it is our beloved Navy Corpsmen. Let's give a shout out to the Navy Corpsmen out there. We love them. And I know every Marine has had the story of walking into a corpsman's office, barely alive, suffering the most severe illness you've suffered in your entire life, and they'll say, just go home, hydrate, and take 2 Motrin, and it'll work out just fine. So thank you to the corpsmen for taking care of us, but also toughening us up. And that's right, and it changes socks. A bottle of water, a change of socks, and 2 Motrin will fix any illness. So we are grateful, Marines, to be graced with the presence of some very special guests, people whose very lives contribute to the incredible Marine Corps legacy. Earlier, we all heard from Sergeant Dakota Meyer, who received the Medal of Honor in 2011 for extraordinary heroism in 2009. Are we proud of Sergeant Dakota Meyer? Yes, we are. And despite the constant rain of enemy fire, then Corporal Meyer made multiple runs across an ambush zone that day, saving the lives of 36 American and Afghan troops. Dakota Meyer, we love you. We're proud of you. You're the very best of the Marine Corps and the very best of this country. We are also honored to be joined by American hero Charles Cram, who was a Navy corpsman attached to the 5th Marine Division when it landed at Iwo Jima. Now, as part of that force, this American hero watched the Stars and Stripes raised over Mount Suribachi before being wounded on the 7th day of battle while tending to a Marine. For his valor, he was awarded the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, and the Purple Heart. Sir, we love you. Thank you for your service. The Marines love their corpsmen, and that's one of the very best. Another living legend we have with us today is Elmer Royce Williams, a naval aviator who, while on combat patrol in the Korean War, suddenly found himself up against 7 Soviet MiGs. Sir, thank you so much. God bless you, and thank you. Now we're going to let the brave lieutenant take a seat, but I got to talk a little bit about him. I got to brag on him, because despite the odds, Lieutenant Williams took down 4 of them in a single 35-minute dogfight, the longest dogfight in naval history, a record, I believe, that still stands to this day. Hoorah! Now, not only did he take 4 MiGs down, he demolished the MiG's reputation as an unbeatable aircraft and secured his place among the legends of American military aviation. And if you notice, we just talked about a great Marine in ground combat, a great Marine in aviation combat, and a great Marine, or I should say a great Navy corpsman who helps out our Marines. In other words, Marines can kick ass in every theater of combat, and we do it every single day. And I finally got to give a shout out to my dear friend, recently retired Master Sergeant Charles McKelvey. Chase, where you at, man? Love you. Oh, he's got a beard already. Look at that. He's been out of the Marine Corps for 3 months. He's already got a beard longer than what I got. Now, Master Sergeant McKelvey and I served together at Cherry Point when we were both very young Marines, and we've been good friends ever since. I call him Chase. Other Marines will tell you Chase is an extraordinary person, the smartest, kindest Marine you'll ever meet, and those are descriptions I can personally attest to. Now, he was supposed to join me at my inauguration to become the Vice President last January, but tragically he lost his wonderful, devoted wife, Jillian, to a terrible illness just days before. So I want to tell you, Chase, in front of all these Marines, we're proud of you. We're thankful for you. I'm sorry I couldn't see you in January, but I'm glad to see you today, my friend. I love you. Semper Fi. And finally, we are grateful to have all of you, whatever your rank, whatever your station in the Marine Corps, here at Camp Pendleton to commemorate this incredible 250th anniversary of our beloved Marine Corps. From these mountains and this water, Marines have deployed to every major fight of the last century, from island hopping across the Pacific to Vietnam's Hue City, to Kuwait, to Helmand, and beyond. And standing here, you can feel the weight of that history, the generations upon generations of Americans who cut their teeth at this base before boarding ships and carrying the American flag into battle. But that's exactly what Marines do. For 2.5 centuries now, this beloved Corps has served as our nation's sharp edge, always forward deployed, always ready, and always faithful. My service in the Marine Corps was a huge part of my life. I would not be here today. I would not be the Vice President of the United States. I would not be the man I am today were it not for those 4 years that I served in the Marine Corps. Now, before I was enlisted, I was pretty terrified about the prospect of becoming a Marine. I'm sure that a lot of you can share that. I remember I had nightmares before I went to boot camp of drill instructors yelling at me, of being away from my family, of being constantly stretched well beyond my own physical limits. It's daunting stuff, as all of you know, and as anyone who survived boot camp can tell you, it's all real. But my cousin Rachel, in particular, one last shout out to a former Marine. In particular, she pushed me to do it. A veteran of the Corps herself, she got it. She understood what joining does for a young man or a young woman. So she pushed me to go and talk to a recruiter, which I did, and I will never forget that conversation. Because at no point did he try to sell me on the United States Marine Corps. He warned me, he said, "You don't enlist in the Marine Corps to make money," and you all know that's exactly right. He said you might even go to war. This was back in 2003, right after we invaded Iraq. But what he did tell me is that enlisting in the Marines would teach me many things, including discipline and the virtue of leadership. And that was appealing to me, and I know it's appealing to Marines today and for every year of our 250-year history. Hoorah! But over the days that followed, what further dawned on me was that I needed to do this not just for me, but for the nation. My country needed me just as sure as the country needs each and every one of you today. The September 11th attacks had occurred barely a year earlier. And as I weighed what enlisting would mean, the crisis in Iraq was becoming a full-out war. So I made the call. As an 18-year-old senior in the state of Ohio, it was one of the first times in my life that I recall feeling like the country actually needed me. And when I realized I had a responsibility to something so much greater than myself or even my family, and I had an obligation to act on that feeling of duty. And I know that's something that animates every single one of you, whether you're a private or a general. That spirit of service has been the spirit of the Marine Corps for 2.5 centuries. So I just wanted to say, from the bottom of my heart, from one Marine to another, from the Vice President of the United States to the whole Marine Corps, thank you for your service. We are proud of you and proud of your service. And I'm here today because I want to talk a little bit about the great Marine Corps tradition, 250 years of it. I want to talk about the tradition that all of us standing under this bright California sun, and man, it is bright, we all chose, however many years ago, to adopt that Marine Corps tradition as our own. A tradition in that just 3 short weeks will reach its 250th year. Now, as many of you in this audience know, the Corps found its origins in the autumn of 1775. And a venue may be familiar to you, a bar in Philadelphia called Tun Tavern. The very first bar in the United States of America that would come to regret serving United States Marines. So here we are in Tun Tavern almost 250 years ago. And what we did in that moment was we answered the call of service. Because even before we had a Declaration of Independence, the Continental Congress organized an army and a navy to fight the British, but they recognized they needed something a little bit extra. They needed a force that could fight just as comfortably on land as it could on sea, that was able to move fast, strike hard, and hold its ground. So on November 10th, 1775, Congress resolved to raise 2 battalions of Continental Marines. Captain Samuel Nicholas established that first recruitment drive at Tun Tavern in Philadelphia in search of a few good men. He was seeking young, able-bodied citizens, men who relished the opportunity to fight tyrants, yes, but more importantly, who were eager to answer that first call of duty of a young nation. Just a few months later, Captain Nicholas was personally leading those Marines in a daring raid on New Providence, receiving British forts and supplies in the Bahamas. And 2 short years later, the Marines joined forces with the legendary John Paul Jones, the father of the American Navy, beginning a great tradition that has survived the entire term of our Marine Corps, that when the Marines and the Navy go to war together, they always fight well and they always win. The War of Independence set a blueprint that Marines follow to this day. Boldness in action, unity in purpose, and a lightning readiness to go wherever the nation required. In battle after battle, the United States Marine Corps has broken the backs of empires, you've toppled tyrants, you've hanged pirates, and hunted down America's foes across the 7 seas. And Pete, turns out we're hunting some pirates today, aren't we? From Tripoli to the halls of Montezuma, from Bella Wood to Iwo Jima, and from Chosin Reservoir to Khe Sanh, we Marines have repeatedly earned our reputation as the first to fight and the last to leave. And as all of you know, that legacy only grew stronger after 9/11. Within weeks after the attack, the 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit, the 15th MEU, already forward deployed on September the 11th, helped launch the most ambitious amphibious assault in the history of the United States of America. And that's just how Marines are wired. No matter where, no matter when, the Corps will always uphold its reputation for discipline and for unshakable focus. Now, I always think back to what Army Major General Frank Lowe had to say this about the Corps in 1952. The safest place in Korea was right behind a platoon of Marines. Lord, how they could fight, and what a great testament to the United States Marine Corps. Because while the world keeps changing, new weapons, new threats, and new ways in which we wage war, the nation will forever need the United States Marine Corps. And in the Trump administration, we know that the work you do, protecting our country, putting your lives on the line to defend our way of life, is at the heart of Marine Corps service. Now, when officials try to shift focus to mandating diversity quotas, or they try to inject partisan politics into the American Armed Forces, they impede the Marine Corps' ability to do its best work, and that's why the Secretary of War and the President of the United States have stood so firmly against that crap. Because when you can't operate at your best on the battlefield, it puts everybody's lives at risk. And it's why we're recentering the focus of all of our military, including the Marine Corps, on those timeless values of discipline, readiness, and faith in one another. Now, I remember when I was a young recruit in boot camp talking about how politically correct things got maybe over the last few years, and I compare it to my time in the Marine Corps. I remember I was lining up as a young recruit to go to church one Sunday morning, and back then there were 2 lines. There was the Catholic line, and there was the Protestant line. And I remember we all get into our lines, and there's one recruit who's just kind of standing there by himself. And, you know, the folks watching on TV may not realize that Marines refer to themselves in the 3rd person when they're in recruit training, because you haven't earned the title of United States Marine, and so you have to say, this recruit, instead of I. And so you've got this one recruit standing out there by himself, and the drill instructor says, hey, what the hell are you doing? And the recruit says, this recruit is an atheist. And the drill instructor says, bullshit, get in the Catholic line. That didn't work in the Biden administration, Pete. That didn't work in the Biden administration. But now we recognize that it is not our diversity that makes us stronger. It is our common purpose. It is our common mission. And it is the fact that every single person here bleeds Marine Corps green. And I think that all of you should realize that from the President of the United States on down, this government is proud of you, it's proud of the tradition of the Marine Corps, and it's proud of the fact that that great tradition has custodians in each and every single person here, each and every single Marine who is serving today. And I hope that the proud Marine Corps tradition, you heard Pete talk about this, Chesty Puller, Dan Daly, John Basilone, all of these great Marine Corps heroes, they should inspire you through their action to be the very best Marine in the future that you can be. Now, I remember so many people who made my Marine Corps journey and made the country better in the process. I remember a gunnery sergeant who saved me from financial ruin. I was a young Lance Corporal, and I was going to go to an off-base car dealership and buy a used car with a low dealer-provided interest rate of 22%. These Marines behind me, you aren't supposed to nod your head at that part, guys. No 22% interest rate. So I had a gunny who was like, look, stop being a dipshit and go to Navy Federal Credit Union, get a better interest rate, and then go and buy a car. And that's exactly what I did. I remember that gunny, and I remember a young Marine who was younger than I was. Chase knows who I'm talking about, a Puerto Rican Marine who grew up in New York City. You too, huh? A man I thought I had nothing in common with, but who I learned bled Marine Corps green just like I did, and who came to my inauguration as Vice President of the United States. I remember a Marine I served with, a guy whose political beliefs you might call far left, but despite the craziness of our politics today, remains one of my best friends and is a man I would trust with my life. I remember the Marines raising the flag over Iwo Jima, etching in American memory the importance of respecting and honoring our beautiful national symbol. I remember all my friends from the Marines, men and women, some of whom retired and some of whom made the Marine Corps proud in the civilian world. I remember General Chuck Krulak, who I met at my cousin's boot camp graduation. He was the 31st Commandant of the Marine Corps, and I was probably 14 years old, and I was taller than he was. But he was tough as nails. I met him as Vice President, by the way, just a few months ago. He's still very short, and he's still tough as nails, and he still loves the Marine Corps as much as he did on his first day of service. Now, he had a phrase, I'm sure you guys have heard it. He said that the most important thing the Marine Corps does for this nation is to win battles and to make United States Marines. Today, we remember a fallen Marine from the 3rd Marine Air Wing who died not far from here on a training mission. He died so recently, as a matter of fact, I can't even say his name publicly, but I want all of us to know and send a message to his family that we remember them and we know that his Marine Corps service was not in vain. Let's give an hoorah for that fallen Marine. I know that all of us remember the friends who went off to war, and we particularly remember the ones who were mangled in combat or who never came home at all. Every single one of you has memories like this. Every single one of you is lucky enough to have friends like mine. Within each of you is your own Marine Corps legacy burning every single day. And because of that, every one of our fellow Marines lives on. As Gunnery Sergeant Hartman in Full Metal Jacket, we like Full Metal Jacket, Marines? He said, but the Marine Corps lives on forever, and that means you live forever. Our motto, Marines, is Semper Fidelis, which means in Latin, always faithful. Though the shape of the battlefield will change, our nation will be just fine, so long as fellow Marines just like you remain faithful to that great Marine Corps legacy. My fellow Marines, you have the watch now. You honor that legacy by how you carry yourself in public. You honor it by how you treat your friends and family. You honor it by how you contribute to your communities, and most importantly, you honor it in how you fight and win the nation's battles. So from one Vice President to an incredible United States Marine Corps, keep kicking ass, keep taking names. Semper Fidelis, Marines. Happy 250th birthday. God bless you.
friend, I'd sacrifice all those nights if I could make the earth and my dreams the same. The only difference is to let love replace all I hate. So let's go there. Let's make our escape. Come on, let's go there. Let's ask, can we stay? Can you take me higher to a place where light might see? Can you take me higher to a place where golden streams? So let's go there. Yeah, let's go there. Come on, let's go there. Let's ask, can we stay?
Mr. Vice President, Mr. Secretary of War, Mr. Secretary of the Navy, Admiral Caudle, General Smith, distinguished guests, brothers and sisters in arms, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and welcome to today's performance featuring the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps' 5th generation stealth fighter aircraft, the F-35C Lightning II. Major Shane Clark, call sign Exotic, hailing from Palo Alto, California, will be at the controls for this performance as he demonstrates the impressive flight characteristics of this war-fighting machine. Serving as ground safety officer, we have fellow F-35C aviator Major John Rogers, call sign Corby, and I will be your narrator, Lieutenant Jeff Nadella, call sign Castro, from Carroll Stream, Illinois.
always forward, always faithful, always ready. Ladies and gentlemen, your United States Navy and United States Marine Corps.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome retired U.S. Marine Corps officer and fitness advocate, Kagan Dunlap.
Look familiar? Scenes like these are happening all over the planet right now. You could be next. That is, unless you make the most important decision of your life. Prove to yourself that you have the strength and the courage to be free. Join the Marines. Oh, man. I was hoping that some of you would get that reference. I'm glad some of you did. So 250 years ago today, or not today, but this next coming month, this year, Captain Samuel Nicholas and his friend Robert Mullen started recruiting Marines in Tun Tavern in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Little did they know that the United States Marine Corps would become known as one of the greatest and most respected fighting forces that the world has ever known. The people they recruited weren't Superman. They didn't have superpowers. They weren't in a Marvel movie. They were farmers. They were blacksmiths. They were tailors and sailors. They were hunters and people that worked with their hands. These people stormed ships, they seized forts, and they stared down the world's greatest navy, which at the time was the British Navy. We didn't offer them riches, we didn't offer them glory, but we did offer them the opportunity to become part of something that was much greater than themselves. Today, when I look out at all of you, I see a bunch of people from all over the world, from all over the United States of America, from all over everywhere. Some people might be from California, there might be some people from Indiana, maybe some from Alaska, maybe some from Hawaii. Some of you may have grown up with lots of money, some of you might have grown up poor, some of you might have parents, some of you might not have parents. But guess what? All of us are here for a reason. We are a family. That's what brought us together. One of the greatest parts about this organization is that we don't care who you are, what you look like, where you're from, what your experience level is, but you are welcome here if you can earn it. And believe you me, you have to earn it. Just like what Sergeant Dakota Meyer said, it's not given. You have to work hard for it. And anything valuable that I've found in my life that I've earned was something I had to work very hard for. That's just been my personal experience. Now, like I said, when I look out on all of you, I see my brothers and my sisters. You are all family to me. And as far as I'm concerned, we bleed the same blood, we're from the same timeline, we're from the same DNA line as far as I'm concerned. And come hell or high water, we need to support each other. We have to. Because one day, we are going to go to war again. And when that happens, the only people you're going to be able to rely on is that Marine or sailor to your left and your right. And that's it. None of the other stuff going on in the world is going to matter at that point. It's going to be you and your friends to your left and your right. And believe me, if we go to war, it's not just going to be the infantry that's out there. It's going to be everyone. We're all going. So, one of the things you can do, since it is inevitable that this happens, make yourself better than you were yesterday. Even if it's just going to the gym. Make yourself tougher. Make yourself more resilient. Make yourself smarter. Study. Read. Look things up. Be situationally aware about things that are happening in the world around you. Because believe it or not, that will affect you directly. Things that happen on the other side of the planet can impact where you deploy. Now, 250 years is not an accident, all right? The reason we're here is not because America needs us, right? Because the Army can do everything that the Marine Corps can do, right? They have all the same capabilities. The Army even has ships. Did you know that? I didn't know that for the longest time. I didn't realize the Army had ships, but they do. But the reason we exist is because, not because America needs us, it's because they want us. I don't know if you guys noticed, but recently, the other day, when Secretary Hegseth was speaking to all of the generals of the entire United States military, one of the things he was talking about was instituting a new fitness test for all of the other branches. I don't know if you guys remember that? Who do you think that he got that idea from? I'm just saying, we've been running 2 fitness tests for a long time, have we not? We run a combat fitness test and we run a physical fitness test every year, do we not? You hear a lot of people talking about standards. Well, we set that standard. At least in my mind, the way I perceive that is that we set a standard that other people saw and they're like, you know what, I really like that. Maybe we should try that with other people too. Obviously, it's been impactful, it's been effective with the Marine Corps. I bet it could work with other branches too. Let's try it out. You know how the best way you can affect change is? The best way you can affect change or influence people is by setting the example. If you want to impress upon other people to be physically fit yourself. If you want to impress upon other people to go shooting and get out and learn stuff about the country they live in, do it yourself too. You got to lead by example. That's the best way that you can convince other people that that's the right way to do business. All right? And it's going to be hard sometimes. Because some of the most rewarding things I've found in my life are not easy. They're hard. It takes a lot of work. It takes discipline. I wake up every morning at 4:30. Not because I want to, but because I have things to do. I don't like waking up at 4:30. Every single day my alarm goes off and I'm like, it's like Groundhog Day. But I do it anyway because I know it's the right thing for me to do because I have things I need to do. I need to get up, I need to shave my face, I need to cook breakfast, I have work to do. You know? And I'll tell you right now, I know a lot of you are a lot younger than me. Because I joined pretty late. I was 27 when I first joined the Marine Corps. All right? And I may not be as young as I was then. I still take good care of myself. I work out on a very regular basis. That's like a non-negotiable for me. I don't know about you guys. But I want to make sure that I said this to all of you out there because you're in a different place in your life. Right? If nobody told you today, Marines, I believe in each and every one of you. I want you to know that. Every single one of you out there. I believe in your ability to carry out the mission. I believe in your ability to defend and support the Constitution of the United States. And I believe in your ability to protect and defend the American people. I'm not going to see any of you next month probably because it's November and I can't be here at that point. So because I'm not going to be here in November, I want to wish you all a happy birthday and Semper Fidelis.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome former Force Recon Marine and best-selling author, Chad Robichaux.
Good afternoon, Marines. What an absolute honor to be here celebrating 250 years of Marine Corps badassery. And I don't know if you guys enjoyed that demo, but that was either the best recruiting content that the Marine Corps is going to have for many years, or the strongest message to our enemies to never test the capability and ferocity of the United States military. It's also an honor to be opening tonight for today for the Vice President of the United States of America, JD Vance. How cool is that? If you guys don't know, by the way, he is a United States Marine. Standing here among each of you is a very surreal feeling. I represent multiple generations of warriors in my family from World War I, World War II, Korea. My father was the first Marine in our family, serving as a rifleman in Vietnam. Myself and both of my sons, also Marines. One of which also served in Afghanistan. But I have to be honest, while I've had the opportunity over the years to serve and speak to thousands of Marines through my work at Mighty Oaks Foundation, today I struggle with feeling worthy to stand up here and address you all. Not because I don't have anything to say, trust me, I have a lot to say, but because of the weight in knowing that so many have paid such a heavier price on the altar of freedom than myself. Marines, we stand on the shoulders of giants, of titans. And as I stand here on Delmore Beach, I feel very pressed to inform you that this wasn't always a place for special events. Delmore was once a place where Marine recon candidates, ropers as we call them, would come here and get crushed in that frigid surf over to our left. In the sands of this beach right here are the remnants of lots of sweat and blood, my own included. And I recall laying in that surf zone next to an always grinning Foster Harrington. Foster and I served together for 10 years. He was an incredible Force Reconnaissance Marine, leader, and friend who paid the ultimate price for freedom by giving his life in El Elmore Province, Iraq in 2004, when he exposed himself to enemy gunfire to direct a teammate to safety. I knew Foster well. He served in my wedding. He was there when my kids were born. And Foster deeply believed that being a Marine was to be someone special. He believed that being a Marine allowed you the opportunity to do something special, something more important to yourself, for your nation, and for those around the world who couldn't defend themselves. You all felt that same sacred feeling when the moment your drill instructor pressed that EGA into your palm of your hand when you finished your crucible. And I think back of Foster's life, his service, his sacrifice, and so many warriors like him who came before us, Marines in Belleau Woods and Iwo Jima, Incheon and Kaesong, Ramadi, Helmand Province, all those who rose to the occasion in every battle our nation has engaged in since 1775. Marines like Dakota Myers, who you heard earlier, and Kyle Carpenter. The list of our titans goes on and on. And as I think about them and the selfless acts of courage they displayed on the battlefield, I can't help but ask myself, where in this day and age can we find such incredible warriors? Where can we find those with the desire, the grit, and willingness to lay everything down for the sake of others? The answer is right here. It's you. Because I truly believe that inside the heart of every Marine and Fleet Marine Force sailor is the same warrior spirit that led Foster Harrington outside of cover and concealment to lead a fellow Marine to safety. Now, I don't know what that does for you, but I can tell you what it did for me. In 2003, I had the opportunity to serve on a contract with the JSOC Task Force, and over the following years, I did 8 consecutive deployments to Afghanistan. It was the honor of my life to get to represent the reconnaissance community in the Marine Corps at what I believe to be our premier special operations unit in the world. And over my time there were some great successes that I'm very proud of. but there was also some hard losses. I lost a number of friends, some Americans and some Afghan teammates. We have many wartime allies that we served alongside with, especially in Afghanistan, like my brother Aziz, who I did all my deployments with, who's right here in this crowd, and I'm thankful for him, and our wartime allies that served alongside of us. Like many warriors before us, I came home and struggled with many of the same experiences. I dealt with debilitating panic attacks, anxiety, depression, and it almost cost me everything, to include my family and a personal battle with becoming another veteran suicide statistic. There are a lot of things that played a role in my recovery. Friends, family, getting active again, but nothing was more profound than the restoration of my faith and committing my life to Jesus. The Marine Corps calls this our spiritual pillar, and is the foundation of our pillars of resiliency. And through that decision, I found restoration, I found hope, and I found purpose. And when I came to a place of clarity, I looked back to Foster Harrington and others like him, and I thought about their lives, and I thought about their sacrifice, and I became both convicted and challenged to live my life to the absolute fullest, and live it with purpose, to not mourn their death, but embrace the life and freedoms that they died for. That's part of being here with you today. Passing on the lessons from one generation of Marines to the next, 250 years in and still going. Life as a Marine is hard, but being a Marine is special because it is hard. And as a Marine, you will be asked to do hard things. But when it gets hard, you can always look back and remember those who came before you. We have an incredible heritage of legends like Foster Harrington to learn from, those who challenge us to dig in when we're called to do the impossible, and respond with the words we read in Scripture from Isaiah 6:8. When asked, who shall I send and who will go for us? And I responded, here am I, send me. Marines and sailors, never in my lifetime, and I've been around this gun club for 30 years now, never in my lifetime have we been more supported by leadership from the top. You have a president and vice president who love you, believe in you, and I can tell you from being in D.C., behind the closed curtains, they're doing everything they can to support you. You have a Secretary of War, and by the way, I love that Secretary of War. I don't know if everybody else feels the same way, but I don't like being on defense. I like being a war fighter. But we have a Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who I love, by the way. But based on his PT scores, I think he should have been a Marine. I don't know why he chose to be in the B team, but